Well, I'm very excited to introduce the next guest up here. He's an up-and-comer. I think he's going to be big in Hollywood. I got to tell you. All right, guys, you got to make some noise now. We're going to bring him out, the legendary John Travolta.
Thank you. How many of you have I already met today? Well, you know, this is the first time I have ever done this. And I got to tell you, you made my day. It was lovely. I loved hearing the stories, I loved hearing the coincidences, and I loved hearing your admiration. So thank you very much.
Well, we've talked about, we shouted out to some of your past projects, but I know one of the reasons you're here is because we got the Fanatic hitting theaters this month.
How many saw that? Yeah, cool. Yes.
Yeah, a little screening last night here at Fan Expo Boston. Now, I got to say, my friend, a good friend of mine is Anna Goya, who was in the film with you. So I reached out to her naturally, and I was like, do you have any dirt on John Travolta? And she's like, honestly, no, he's a pro. She said the wig took a little long, and you like to improv at the end of the scenes, but that's all she gave me.
Yes.
So the wig
before and after scenes, I like to improv, especially with this character, because as you know, you saw it with your own eyes, the people that saw it last night, he's a very unusual guy. So it took a little bit of warm-up to get into the zone of his thinking and to improvise his thoughts. So I did like to improvise before and after.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, for any of you who don't know, John plays a character named Moose, who's a fan, but I think the fan thing gets a little out of control.
Well, this is the deal.
As we could say.
I think everybody here who is a fan, I'm a fan, and I know you guys are fans, and I think you have to be a fan in order to expect to be someone a fan of yours, because unless you have admiration and love for people, it doesn't work. So I gave all my love to this character, all the understanding I have of being a fan, and he's not really a professional fan. He's an honest to goodness fan. Everything he collects, he's not selling. He's going to keep, you know, for his life, is how I created him. However, he's been bullied his whole life, and he's been mistreated because he's eccentric. He's a little unusual. But when his favorite movie star mistreats him, he does not know what to do. He just is confused and discombobulated by the idea that his favorite person in the world could possibly want to hurt him. So that's where it moves into kind of a thriller and a horror at the end. And those of you who haven't seen it, I think you'll love it because you'll understand it. And I understand it from all sides. But anyway, that's
any parts of that maybe you brought from your personal experience? Have you had any fan encounters that maybe crossed the line at all?
All the fan encounters that I've had have all been from a very good place, meaning they've loved me and I've loved them. And this is only created for drama's sake. Otherwise, there'd be no story. There'd be no kind of fun thing to watch.
And you mentioned your character. You know, he's a little disappointed, I think, when he has that particular encounter with the person he's a fan of. Is there a pressure for you when you go out in public that you don't want to do that to other people, and you have to always be at a certain mindset or a mind frame before you go out?
Well, I think any celebrity should understand that that they must be in the right frame of mind, because people get excited to see them. And therefore you have to respect the idea that you're important to them and you may change their lives. So anything you do or say or behave in the movie, the movie star, played by Devon Sawa, is actually a good person, but he's not a good celebrity. He misbehaves as a celebrity. And although my character as the fan goes over the line, so does Devon's character goes over the line. So we're both misbehaving really in this movie. And that's what I think is interesting about it. And your girlfriend, Anna, plays a fabulous character. She's a photographer, a professional photographer, and really has a sweet, soft spot for my character and tries to protect him and guide him. and maybe thinks it's not a good idea to go into this movie star's house and, you know, invade his privacy on that level. So anyway, it's very intriguing and fun and interesting.
And Fred Durst directing the film, how did that come to be? Were you like a huge Limp Bizkit fan and then reached out to Fred, or how did you end up forming this relationship?
Well, Fred, if you're familiar with him, came to fame with a lot of videos, music videos, and he showed his talent as a music video director, as well as he created the Limp Bizkit character, but his first love was actually film. So he reached out to me, this is 10 or 15 years ago, to say, would you ever be willing one day to investigate doing film with me? And I said, sure, if you had the right material, let's talk about it. So it took him years, but then he wrote this story based on his experiences and based on, you know, loosely on people he knew. So he presented it to me 2 years ago, and I had the good fortune to be able to raise the money to do the movie, which was not an easy movie to convince people to do, because it doesn't look like a kind of movie that a studio would do. But I knew better, and I got it together for Fred and I to do it. Yeah.
And you worked with some great, give it up.
Yeah, thank you.
And some other great directors that you've worked with, De Palma and Tarantino. Is there anybody left on your director bucket list that you would love to work with on a future project?
Well, director-wise, let's see. Well, I'm very fond recently of these limited series. Like I love the Fosse Verdon series, and I like The Act. So those directors seem to have some insight to good filmmaking. And as far as the old timers, of course, everyone wants to work with Scorsese or Spielberg, but as far as new people, those guys seem pretty interesting.
Yeah. And talking fandom and being a fan, what are you a fan of? What would you use it, like Star Wars or Marvel, or what are you a fan of anything in particular? Music, a certain band? What is your thing?
As far as like what they call big tent pole movies, probably the Bond movies I'm fond of.
Oh, great.
James Bond films. And music, I'm eclectic. I like all different types of music. I love to dance, as you all know. I don't get to do it enough. As a matter of fact, Pitbull, the entertainer, who's my friend also, reached out recently and allowed me to be in his new song, Three to Tango, and we filmed that last month, and now it's a big hit, and I think it's got over 10 million hits on YouTube, and people seem entertained by seeing me dance again. So anyway, that was good.
Well, last time we saw each other, you were with Shania, and you just finished your movie Trading Paint, and I think I had said to you, now are you going to do a music video for her and repay the favor? Is that in the cards?
That may be the only way to dance again, is to keep on doing music videos with current rock, pop musicians, because it seems like the only opportunity to do such.
Well, talking about some past projects, a lot of them involve dancing. Do you still remember the choreography from Grease? Could you still do it?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely. The only thing I probably wouldn't want to try is when I jump up in the air and do the split. Maybe I'll pass on that. But other than that, I probably remember pretty much everything.
Saturday Night Fever, same thing?
Same thing, but I'll probably pass on the Russian knee bends. I think I need to lose about 50 pounds for that one. And wear knee pads or something. What's that?
And Pulp Fiction as well? You did a little bit as well?
Pulp Fiction, everybody can do,
Yeah, that's...
The twist and the Batman and the swim are just popular dances when I was a kid. Some of you are around my age out there, and you remember those dances, of course, right? Okay. So, yeah, and Quentin Tarantino was only familiar with the twist because he didn't grow up in the same era that I did. So I said, you know, Quentin, there are other dances in that era other than the twist. And he said, oh, really? Well, like what? I said, well, there was the swim. I said, there was a hitchhiker. There was the Batman. I said, which was really the cat Batman did with Catwoman. And he said, well, show me them. I did. And then he said, well, let's use all of them. I said, okay. And he decided to film it himself as opposed to a cameraman. So he filmed them, and he'd call out which dance he wanted us to do. So we would, you know, it was a teenage wedding and we'd start with a twist, then he'd say, okay, the swim. And then we'd go into the swim, he'd say, okay, the hitchhiker. Okay, you know, now go down, dip. And anyway, it became something more than just one dance because we called them novelty dances when I was a kid. And I was probably about 7 or 8 when all those dances came to be. But anyway, sometimes you show, the old dog shows the new dog some tricks.
Well, that scene in Pulp Fiction, did your previous projects feed into that at all? The fact that you had done Grease and Saturday Night Fever, the dance element?
Well, that fed into it specifically because talk about a fan and talk about a fanatic. Quentin was the ultimate fan of mine. Wow. He was obsessed with Grease, Saturday Night Fever, and Blowout, and Carrie, and Urban Cowboy. So when I met him, he asked if he could fulfill his fantasy by playing games of those shows, and welcome back, Kotter, too. So the first night I met with him, he said, would you play the Kotter game with me? And then maybe like kind of do Vinny, you know, once in a while. And so I said, sure. So we would play the game, and of course it was utterly simple. You know, you spin the thing and, you know, you do something, and then I would say a line, and then he said, but I don't want to make a big deal of it. You just say the line, you know. I said, okay. Then we put out the Saturday Night Fever game. Then we brought out the Grease game. Then we brought out, there was one other game. But anyway, the point is that he had a fantasy because he was a collector. He had all my memorabilia. He had all the games. He had the dolls. He had all of that. So it really was those films that lured him into using me in Pulp Fiction. Yeah.
Speaking of that memorabilia, do you yourself possess any of that? Is it odd?
I do now. Today I was given. Who gave me? Someone gave me a couple of things today that was really cool. It was a Kotter game that I hadn't seen before, and then other people had things I signed that I'd never seen the Vincent Vega talking doll. That was amazing. That he has all my dialogue. You press his chest, and there's all the dialogue that Vincent says, and I love that. I probably have more memorabilia than any other, I mean, collectively, but I've been around longer than everybody else, so it makes sense. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of dolls and games all done in...
People dressed as characters of yours today?
Yeah, I love that people dressed today like Moose, like the movie that I did called The Fanatic. The character's name is Moose, and there was like 3 people today that dressed like Moose. That was fun to see.
That's got to be a cool feeling. Do you remember, starting out as an actor? Was there a particular moment that it really hit you that this is happening? Maybe it was a billboard of a film that you had done, or anything like that, or seeing your likeness somewhere. Was there a moment that you kind of knew you had made it?
Well, when the first year of Welcome Back, Kotter, I didn't get any fan mail the first week, and then the second week I got 1 letter, and then I thought, well, maybe there's something wrong. Then I went to a shopping mall and I got mobbed. Oh, wow. And then the next week I got 25,000 letters. So then I thought, oh, okay, it just took a little time, a few episodes for everyone to start liking Vinny. But it was probably around then that I realized that I was famous to some degree. Yeah.
It's a ridiculous thing to say, but say somebody was living under a rock and had never heard of John Travolta before, and they had to start by watching one thing that you've done, one film. Where would you recommend they start to really get a taste?
Well, you know what? Honestly, I would let this group of all the people in the world would know better. Okay, so let's ask, like, what would you start with? Grease. Grease, it sounds like a tie between Grease and Pulp Fiction, maybe? Okay. And the Boy in the Plastic Bubble. Which one? Phenomenon? Face Off. Urban Cowboy. Which one? Look Who's Talking. Yes. All those sound good to me.
Is there one that's close and near and dear to your heart, or are they guys sort of kind of like all your children at this point, where you really can't pick a favorite?
They really are all my children. First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you for allowing me to have such a diverse career, because without you guys supporting every move I've made, including the more eccentric ones, like, for instance, playing Edna in Hairspray. I mean, you have allowed me to have an actor's ultimate dream, which is to be able to play anything that they thought they could do well, and you've given permission for me in particular to do that. I mean, the wild characters that I've been able to portray, and you guys have welcomed them. Pelham 123 and Broken Arrow and Robert Shapiro and OJ. All those are very, wild characters.
Oh, Michael, yes.
Oh, Michael. The Angel and Michael. The arrogant lawyer in Civil Action. I mean, these are very diverse concepts. And then when you see Moose, to those of you who haven't seen it, that's the furthest out character I've ever played. But it's because you guys let me do it, Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, characters, all over the map, from literal mothers to mob bosses, and a lot of heroes, a lot of quote unquote villains.
Yes.
Do you have a preference? A lot of actors sometimes they like to play the more villainous characters, as they're a little more complex and they have more conflicts. What are you, a hero or a villain, or?
It really is a mix, because, like, let's say you take the Punisher, he's a definite villain, but because I could find a style in which to play him, I felt like I could achieve him. So there's no preference. It's just, how good is it? How well is it written? And how good is the direction? And how well is the story being told? And so on and so forth. And that invites you to change it up. So I don't know if I have a preference. I just want good. I just want something good.
Yeah, and you also beyond acting as well, a producer on American Crime Story. What is it like to kind of, obviously you started in that as well, but to take on a different role and to be a producer and do something behind the camera a little more?
It's a good idea to become a producer to some degree, because it allows you more creative controls and quality checking of the product.
And also, too, a pilot, an avid pilot. You of your love of aviation, which has been going on for quite some time. How many different types of planes have you've flown at this point?
Well, I have 12 different jet ratings, but I've probably flown about 28 different types of aircraft. Yeah.
That's incredible.
For a high school dropout, that ain't bad. Imagine what the teacher that said, "John, stop looking out the window." Now.
Where did that
glad
love?
I didn't stop.
Where did the love of aviation come from for you?
I have no idea. I just always loved aircraft, what they could do, where they could go, how they did it. how they looked. I loved it. Just a passion of mine.
It's very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
And talking, all these other franchises and these big tentpole things, are there any, bucket list roles for you that you would love to do? Do you want to be a part of maybe the Star Wars universe or the the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I know you did a bit with the Punisher, but anything that you would love to do?
I'm more reality based in my acting choices. So whatever Marvel scenario invites more of a reality, like the Punisher was very reality based, and I'm more attracted to that than fantastical. So that's all I could say about that. That's why I like the Bond movies, because even though they're bigger than life, they're still reality based.
Yeah, I guess. And so your choice in a role really comes from script is the biggest factor for you?
Script, is it a story that I love and want to tell? And is it a character that I believe that I can do differently enough to be entertaining to the audience, and maybe that you couldn't imagine another actor in it if I did it well enough? You say, well, I don't want to see anyone else do that role. And then I would feel that I achieved my goal.
Now, feel free to not answer this, as it maybe it is slightly incriminating, but when you finish a project, do you take things from set? Do you take a souvenir? I really want to do now. You want to know if you have like the outfit from Grease in your closet at home, or Saturday Night Fever?
I've always had the right to keep my wardrobe.
Okay.
And I've given it away for charities every time. So everyone, I don't own anything because I do it and I sign it, and then someone raises money for something, and that's the way it should be. I would rather have you guys have my collection than me.
So you have nothing left of no memorabilia kicking around at home?
No, what happens is this: I do a film, I collect something that may or may not be viable for the future. I give it to my office, and then they give it as charity requests come in. Okay. I give that to them, and then they give it away to do that. So.
And of course, speaking of charity, the John Travolta Foundation.
Yes.
How important is it to you to really give back to the community? What does that mean to you?
Well, I think it's important to give back when you have an idea of why and what you're giving back to. Not a generality, but a specific. And because my son was so dear to me and meant so much to me, that this kind of umbrella foundation that I've had, I study everything we donate to make sure it could make a difference, as opposed to throwing a bunch of dimes at a telephone and hoping one coin gets in. I like to know what is happening with it.
Yeah, I think it's important to use the platform to really make a change.
Yeah, and be specific about it and bright as opposed to general.
Well, we only have a few minutes left, so I guess before we wrap up, let's talk a little more about the Fanatic. Before people go and see this film, August 30th, it hits theaters. Anything they got to know? Any last words going into it, or do you want to just keep it open?
Fasten your seatbelt. It's a wild ride, my man.
All right, everybody. Well, make some noise. The legendary John Travolta.
Hi, this is Aaron Ashmore, and you are watching Fandom Spotlight. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe like now. Oh, and have fun and follow your fandom.